learn how to focus, right? For me, even to this very day, I know a great deal about a lot of things. I'll never be an expert in anything because I'm such that I'm very curious. So if I want to know how that camera works, I'll spend the next 6 months and I'll know everything about how that camera works. If I'd have spent a year, I could have been an expert. But once I satisfy my curiosity, I move on, right? So that's how people always say, man, you know so much. I'm just a curious person. But how much better would my life be if I had a singular focus? Mm-hmm. And so for the last 20 odd years, it was working in that track. Second would be discipline. And focus helps discipline because if you know what it is you're trying to accomplish, then you know all the things that won't help that. So that helps you be disciplined. If I want to have 12% body fat, eating chocolate ice cream at 10 o'clock at night and after my Five Guys and fries ain't helping so much, right? So discipline. And then the last thing is service.
Welcome world, welcome family to another episode of the EL2A podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Gilmore Jr. To the right of me, we got Mr. Military Man, Mr. Miles McConaughey. He's back, y'all. We got him in the building, all right? To the right of him, we got the Rocket, Mr. Highest of Seven Hills, Mr. Eddie, the Rocker. How you feeling today, brother? I ain't asked you. Hold on, let me go back. Go back to Miles, brother. My bad. How you feeling today, brother?
Feeling good today.
You good? Everything good? I'm
Everything good.
Glad to have you back, bro.
Appreciate it.
Now we got the Rocket. How you feeling today, brother?
I'm good. I just realized y'all got on the same color, bro.
We do. We match. A great minds think alike, but he ain't got these on.
There you go.
Like me.
There you go.
All right, but now, and hey, to the right of him, we got a very, very special guest, Mr. Elgin Carelock, the serial entrepreneur. How you feel today? This is
Wonderful.
Hey, man. So I have to stop right here. I love to give flowers in the beginning to people that I know, the people that I adore. You're one of those people, man. One thing about you, and I genuinely, this is a genuine statement. One thing that always stood out about you is your heart. So it's in life, and I can speak personally. We come from kind of environments where you kind of, when you meet somebody, you kind of have a wall there, and it's like, you tough on them a little bit until you figure out who they are. Mm-hmm. You never had that. I never felt that from you. We got introduced by a mutual chef. He just disappeared, but anyway, he introduced us, and ever since the day I met you, you have done nothing but everything to help me that you could, and I appreciate you for that.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah. So I want to open it up with you about to say to a God.
The highs of 7 hills.
Highs of 7 hills.
There you go.
You telling me that?
Ride Nation, I'll give you that. I feel the joy, but I do want to open it up with that, man. Where does that come from? Like that spirit that you have to help, and it's not just me. I've seen you help countless others.
Sure.
We got Brother Rory in the room. We got other people that I just seen. Like if I mention somebody to you right now and just say, I need you to, you're going to help.
Sure.
Where does that spirit come, that helping spirit come from?
So my mom was, the neighborhood that I grew up in was just like that. I grew up in Washington, D.C. And so if your dad lost his job, one of the other dads found him a job. And then all of the other families cooked food and brought it to your house until your dad found his job. So that was always the way it was. If there was one of the older, I lived in an apartment complex. So if one of the older seniors was sick, then I'd go up and I'd sit with them because that's what my mom said you do. And we would cook and clean their house. And so it was always, it's just how I was built. Yeah. And so it never left. I mean, I'll tell you a story since talking about FAMU. I had I was in the Marching 100 and I had a fellow section member, and I noticed he always had the same clothes on. And I said, hey, why you always wearing the same clothes? And he said, that's all I got. So I took him up to my dorm room and I gave him half of all my clothes, shoes, belts, socks, all of it. Yeah. And to this day, he mentions it when I see him. Yeah. He said, I can't believe you did that. And I was like, but, I was taught that if you can, you do.
Right. Man, that's beautiful. So growing up in Washington, D.C., Chocolate City.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah. So when you were growing up, I'm pretty sure things have changed now, but I'm pretty sure back then it was really Chocolate City as far as the culture that was there. What is the Washington, D.C.? Because you came down to Florida, the best state in the world. But as you're in there, what are some of the things you think that you got from Washington, D.C.? Like, what was the difference in just growing up there and being able to be in that? What is something? Because I grew up in Ocala. This ain't Chocolate City.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So what are some things you got from growing up in an environment like that?
A couple of things was really the diversity of the area, right? So I grew up in Southeast DC. If you live there, it's Southeast, okay? And that part of the town was heavy concentration Black. So the record store was Black owned, the barbershop, the salons, the clothing. So everybody around there was Black. But I could get on the bus and ride down Pennsylvania Avenue and go walk through the White House because you could walk through it then, right? And had the fortune of going to a school for the performing arts in Georgetown. And I tell people, I didn't know I was poor until I went to Georgetown, right?
Yeah.
You get up there and there's houses bigger than my whole apartment building.
Yeah.
And so it was just that, right? All of the diversity. So I got to know a lot of different kind of people. And so my mom also worked she ran a gift shop in probably the most popular hotel in town. So she had celebrities and all the stuff that came through, and I would just go over there after school, and the staff there was from all over the world. And so just I really learned diversity there. So that there was no time where I felt uncomfortable around people because I had met people from different countries, different states, different accents.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a beautiful thing, man. I always share this story, and I'm skeptical about how I say it because I don't want to offend others. But to your point, growing up in an environment like that is so important. So growing up here in Ocala, Black people, white people, Spanish. It's not, it's not the most diverse place ever.
Sure.
I never forget. I went up to Philadelphia, my first day there. My parents, we dropped my bags and stuff off and went to downtown Pennsylvania. If you're not aware of Philadelphia, it has one of the highest population of Black Muslims.
Really?
So at this time, before going there, it wasn't aware to me. Obviously, the Malcolm X's, all these different people, they're Muslim, but it didn't dawn on me personally. I didn't know Black people were Muslim. I always think that was like Arab people that were Muslims. So we got there, and there were women in the full situations. In my remarks, and again, this is no offense to nobody, this is way out of my ignorance. I looked at my mom, and this was a serious comment. This is not a joke. I say, Mom, they got ninjas on the street. And look, seriously, this is a comment that I made because I wasn't aware of those things. Sure. So ever since that, but that just comes through the diversity. So going back to you being able to grow up, and that's the important. So our kids being diverse, getting outside their environment and showing them more. You can even say, because you literally only know what you know.
That's right.
I'm saying, so that was important. I had to share that. But even going back to you, your transition to coming down to Florida, going to FAMU, what went into play in that? Why you could have stayed up there in DC or went to a school around the area? You got Howard right there. Yeah. So what drawed you down to come down to FAMU?
I was set up.
Yeah.
So I got into marching band in junior high. Okay, and really enjoyed it. And so my junior high school teacher said, "Hey, I want you to come and audition to go to this school for the performing arts." And I was like, "Okay, where is it?" And he's like, "Georgetown's." Where's that?
Yeah.
Right? Had to take 2 buses to get all the way up there from Southeast. And so the band director there, Mr. Clark, was fantastic, right? So I go through my 3 years there. Mr. Clark says, "Hey, I want to take you on a road trip." I said, "Okay, where we going?" He said, "Florida A&M." And I said, "Where's that?" Right? Tallahassee. So we go down to FAMU, and I meet Dr. Foster and Dr. White, and I auditioned, and they said, "Hey, come on down to the summer camp." And so what I find out is the band director from junior high school, where'd he go? The band director from high school, where'd he go? FAMU. So they walked me right into it. I mean, because I was accepted in 3 other universities, but they were like, "Hey, come down here." And then obviously when you go out there and you see the 100, it's like, all right, that's a done deal. I got to do that.
Yeah, man. I would love to hear the experience of that. So obviously, bro went to school. He played football there. And so we went up to the games a lot. So I was always experiencing. That was always a highlight, going there, being able to see the halftime show or just even hearing them play certain tunes that I just love to hear. I want to get an inside. So I never talked to anybody else part of the March of 100. You walk me into a day in the life of a person a part of the March, because I've heard gruesome stories of like how structured it was, how real deal it was to be a part of that, man. So what kind of walk us through is like your first day walking into what did you walk into, and what surprised you about being a part of that?
So throughout the country, there are state bands, right? And the state bands, they're ranked first, second, and third chair based on how good you play, right? This was a band of 300, and they were the first chair from everywhere. So every single person was top quality. I mean, it just blew my mind, the level of musicianship. I mean, I went to a school with people who now are Grammy Award winners, right? And these guys were even better. And so it was that. And then the second part was the level of discipline. I mean, we practiced during the summer 6 hours a day, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the evening. And relentless, right? I mean, it could be raining. The only time he would let us off the patch is if it was lightning.
Yeah.
We'd stay out on thunder or lightning. But what happened is they walked in my very first day, they hand you a packet. And it's like, what's this? This is 100 songs that you need to know by the end of the summer. Mm. And so when you weren't out on the patch practicing, you were in the band room practicing, right, to memorize all that music. And we learned dance routines. We had a choreographer that would just come out there and he'd do it a couple of times through, and then we do it by section, and then we do it by band. And so the level of discipline was such that I'll tell you this. Once we were asked to march at a grand opening of a building in Jacksonville. And so we drive all the way across to Jackson. We do this 2-mile parade, and then we do this show, and then we get back. We get to Tallahassee about 10 o'clock. And Dr. White says, hey, before you guys get off the bus, we decided to change the halftime show. And we were like, you mean tomorrow? And he was like, yeah. And so he passed out new music, new dance routine, new formations on it. And from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., we practiced.
Wow.
And performed it at noon. And you could never tell that we had learned it the night before. That kind of discipline.
Yeah.
And so that's really the hallmark of what made us the number one band in the land. Back in 1985, when I was there, we won that actual designation.
Wow.
And it's because of that. I mean, just the level of discipline was just spectacular. And you had to make the band. I mean, they had a ceremony called Shaking the Tree, and they would call out the ones who made it. If your name wasn't called,
it's bad luck.
Time to go.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Was it a culture shock for you, going from being up north where you were able to see and meet everybody, but then you go to Tallahassee where it's just at Florida A&M, there's everybody that looked like you. So right. was it a difference?
I mean, slightly because of the mere fact that everybody was a musician, right? And just about everybody you met that looked like you was on campus, right? But I lived over by Florida State. So you go over there and it's like, you see your brother every other 50 during that time. So I think if there was any culture shock, it was probably built around the autonomy of being on your own, right? And I actually got in trouble because when I left, I think it was 3 weeks before I called. I was enjoying myself so much. 3 weeks got by and I hadn't called my mom. That man, I heard about that.
Yeah.
And so one thing you did say you stated that. Well, let me ask you this, because I was 2 questions were in my mind.
Sure.
I want to ask you about the athlete process, being a part of a band. One thing I heard you say is discipline, and I always think back to my student athlete days because it makes me a lot to who I am now.
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure that experience molded you a lot to who you are now. So I heard you just say discipline. So for like me, time management, one of the biggest things I took from playing football, teamwork, being able to be a part of a team and understand that the goal and be goal oriented. Like, we want to win. What does it take to win? Nothing else matters.
Yep.
You know what I mean? When you're in a football facility, like, we got goals we walk through the wall, you see the goals on the wall. When you get in the meeting room and you get your book, your goal is on your book. We want to win the conference championship, and we play these teams, and each team we strategize and to beat each team to win the goal, to win the championship. And that takes a lot to even what we do here as a team, even what I just approach my own life as an individual. When I think about, going to you when it comes to you being a part of that band, outside of discipline, what other things did you take from it when it comes to skills?
Camaraderie. I mean, no one broke rank.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if we were out in a parade and a person tried to walk through, they'd get tackled. No one broke rank. We got into a big thing with the football team, and anybody that was down at FAMU at the time, 1985, right? Big battles. I mean, to the point where they crashed our band ball and had a fight, and we crashed the football thing and we had a fight, and the president had to bring us all in the same room and say, y'all, this is the same school. Y'all can't be having a war between two factions of the same school. So the level of camaraderie, the brotherhood was absolutely, I mean, we had guys that I met that were in the band in the 40s. So we would go to Miami or Tampa, and guys would come up with old band shirts from 40 years ago and tell us stories and talk like that. So a lot of tradition down through the years.
Yeah. Did anything while attending Florida A&M, did anything help shape the remainder of your life to where you are today? Like, did you take anything away, any lessons or any experiences besides the athletic side of it? Were there anything that you took from that to where you are now?
So probably I had two instructors, and funny enough, they both were Dr. Johnson, right? Grace Johnson and Shirley Johnson. And the depth of their knowledge about music and music theory and Beethoven. And so I'll give you that an example. Dr. Grace Johnson, even though she was a music theory teacher, she was a big jazz musician. So she said, you know Beethoven's symphony, dun, 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 dun. And like, yeah. She said, well, see, if we went and add a sharp 9 to it, and then she started playing it like she was Duke Ellington. And we were like, whoa, man. And so again, that's mind expansion, right? I mean, we listen to classical music because we're music majors.
Right.
But for her to then put a spin on it, where she's playing a classic song in the jazz format, me was like, so how do I do that? Right? And then with Shirley Johnson, Dr. Johnson, she was a stickler on representation of us in the public. She said, it is better for you to be quiet than to sound stupid. So no one raised their hand in her class unless they knew what they were talking about. But what did that teach me? To think before you speak. If you don't know the answer, keep quiet. Don't make up things. So that was pretty good thing to carry with.
I like it. So let's get into it, man. So a lot of relationships make up a lot of your teachings and the things that you do.
Sure.
You said better relationships equal a better life.
Yeah.
When you hear that, what are you trying to exemplify? What does that mean? Better relationships equal a better life. How do better relationship equal a better life?
So if you consider every encounter you have with anyone, no matter how long that is, the better you treat that person, the better it goes, right? So I'll give you an example. I had to call the IRS about something in regards to the nonprofit. And when I called, the lady on the phone answered, ready to fight, right? As you can imagine, every call she get, somebody yelling.
Yeah.
And she was trying her best to be in a bad mood, but I kept going, yes, ma'am, thank you. So how's your day going? And after, the 20 minutes that we were on the phone together, she said to me how my problem would be resolved. And then she said, Ms. Keller, hold on a second. She put me on hold and she fixed it. Mm. And then when she came back, she said, is there anything else? I said, no, that is it. Man, I thank you so much for doing that. That was awesome. And she says, you know what? You have an amazing day. I said, you too.
Yeah.
That.
Sure.
If we took that much care with everyone that we deal with, we most certainly would have a better life, because when you're in a better position, right, mentally, then you think clearer. And especially when you understand that this life isn't about you, And that's the thing that really, I think, causes the most problems, that we get in our own little bubble. And so everything's about me, mine, my four walls. But if you build relationships with people, I mean, no matter how long or short you're in their presence, you watch the difference. Things just start opening up for you.
And when did that click for you? Because even when we open up and I say you're willing to help people, I think it's more about that for you, like the relationships that you're building with that person during they're helping. And so to think about, as just full circle as I'm thinking about it, the relationship piece we built is genuinely off you just helping me.
Sure.
Now we have an unbelievable relationship. I can call you, you can call me, and we're going to be here for each other.
Sure.
You get what I'm saying? So where does, I guess, what question I asked? I kind of got about.
You said, when did it click for me?
When did it click for you? There you go. Thank you. When did it click for you?
So in my neighborhood, growing up in D.C., we had hierarchies, right? You had, my sister were the older kids and we were the younger kids. And then I had a baby brother, right? And so then as she moved out, then I became the older kids. And the parents in the neighborhood trusted me with the younger ones. And so in order to have any type of rule, if you will, if I use that word, I had to have a relationship with each and every one of them. So that it was so, I'm gonna tell you how it worked. We had a neighborhood whistle. So whenever I got off the bus from school, I would whistle, and I can whistle pretty loud.
Mm-hmm.
And they would come outside because they knew I was home. And then we would talk about whatever they were dealing with in school, or if somebody I need to go beat up for them, or, all those kind of things. And that's when I really realized. So we would have, in D.C., the streets are letters and numbers, right? So, and states, but we lived at 35th and A, and it was B Street, C Street, all the way down. So the guys on B Street didn't like the guys on A Street, right? And so they would come into the neighborhood to start trouble. And let's say they cornered someone. If they did the whistle, buddy, 30 jokers.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys would be like, whoa, where all these come from? Yeah. But that was that, right? So we understood that by maintaining those relationships, I could keep them from fighting amongst themselves, for sure. Right? Because you got alphas, right? They all want to be boss. And so it was the ability to maintain keeping them out of trouble, was just doing it from person to person. And so there was a certain uniformity to it, but it was always based on the individual.
Yeah. So going into review strategist, what you do today, it's funny when we put up you say you're a strategist.
Yeah.
And so when you're defining yourself as a strategist, what does that mean? So for the average person, they see that tagline strategist and they're like, what does that mean? How would you define that to someone?
Simply stated, it's achieving the best outcome. So whatever it is that I'm going to do, what's the best strategy to get the best outcome? So my mom said to me once, she said, you're either the smartest kid I know or the laziest kid I know, because you think of a shorter way to do everything, right? And so that's kind of how I'm wired. If I had boxes to lift, I say, well, it would make sense for me to start with the heaviest box, because as I get tired, the boxes should get lighter. So, but that's the strategy, right? And so even when I work with businesses, the first thing I ask, so what is it you're trying to accomplish? Because the difference between being a strategist and a consultant is many times a consultant has a program, right? The Zig Ziglar program or this, and then they custom it to whatever your situation is. A strategist looks at the outcome, and it doesn't matter what solves the problem. I just tell you, okay, to get here, these things have to happen. And then we look at what tools to put in place to make you get there.
Yeah. So, well, your love for business, so obviously you have to have a love for business. And it's, like I said, I can come in your room and say something and your brain just figures a way to, do it, and it just is crazy to think that that you could do it like a computer. You almost a walking AI machine and stuff like that. But where did your love, I guess, for business come from? You've been in this for a while, so where did that love come from?
My grandfather.
Okay.
So he was a sharecropper down in Shelby, North Carolina. One of those towns so small that welcome to, and you're now leaving on the same side.
Yeah.
So Grandpa, even though we were told when I was young that, white person was on the sidewalk, we had to step out, don't make eye contact, all these kind of things. Grandpa sold his fruit and vegetables, and everyone called him Mr. Adams. Everyone, no matter who it was. And he was a homeowner. He raised 11 kids, right? He had farm. Pop always had a new truck and always had a pocket full of money. I'm like, okay, I want to learn that. I don't know what he's doing. So I used to just go with him. And I watched how he negotiated. I watched how he supplied. I watched how he took care of customers when they had an issue with any product that he brought to them. And, and that kind of began it. And so I really, and then my dad, who lived in Philly, and I'd go up and Grandpa up there was a businessman. Every day, 3-piece suit, ironed to the crisp, right? And leave with the briefcase, come back with the briefcase. And he would talk, he was in insurance. And he would talk to me about what he did. So, I thought everybody was like that. And so I wanted to learn how to do that. So I think I had my first business, all kidding aside, I think I was like 9. Because our apartment building was 3 floors and there was no elevator, obviously. So I figured out that all of the seniors that lived up on the 3rd floor, all of the dumpsters were downstairs. So for 50 cents, I would take their trash can downstairs and dump it and bring it back up. So, I had a good little business there.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think I got my first allowance when I was in the 11th grade. My mom was like, why do you always have money? Because I always had some little side hustle, right?
So that goes back to that exposure piece. So we're talking about like the being exposed. So
that's
for you
right.
to say that you thought it was normal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For people to look this way or to have these businesses going on and not have it, it goes back to exposure is key. So when we get back into what we do, we say, like, you already know what you know. We have a plethora of kids out here that's just being misled. We literally, our last episode, we talked about, are you a role model or a model playing role? And we talked about how we have false people out here that are false role models, but leading kids down the wrong way. We grew up in an era to where when people, like you said, you had people, stand-up people like your granddad. It's like you can go and visibly see this is what, and they're going to tell you directly how to do it. Or even people, the dope boys or the people that were doing wrong, they would look you in your eyes and you better not. You know what I mean? They'll stand in front and say, you better not do it. And we gotten so far away from that. So for you're a walking example of what you're trying to build with review strategies and with Go CDC. You're trying to build the people, you're trying to show them the way because this is what you have. And it makes me think about on your pages talks about legacy leaders.
Yes.
And building legacy leaders. I never heard it put that way. Can you explain what a legacy leader is?
So a legacy leader, again, going back to what I said earlier, understands that this life isn't about you. So a legacy leader is a person I asked the question, what will you leave this earth when you leave this earth? Will anyone ever know that you were here? Right? So if your mindset is understanding, the word tells us that a tree by its fruit. My thought is, I don't want you to bear a lot of fruit. I want you to plant more trees. Then we'll get more fruit. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so a legacy leader understands that it's my responsibility to pour into whoever is in my charge or in my presence, to make sure they have every opportunity to be the best thing and the best person they can be to whatever level that is. And what that requires is a level of selflessness where you understand that sometimes you can put what they need ahead of what you need. And generally, when you do that, you get the level of loyalty that you're looking for. I'll give you an example. When I was in Atlanta, I had a team of about 11 customer service people. In 4 or 5 years, never changed a single person, right? I never did a schedule. I never scheduled vacations. They all did it among themselves. I just empowered them. I gave them the power. You can do it. All I know is I better not come past here and this booth empty. Okay? But they take care of it. And if they needed to go on vacation or something, work it out among yourselves. And so giving them that power, now that I look here, I've been in Ocala 15 years, but I keep track of all of them. And they're all upper management somewhere or business and all that, And I don't say that I directly caused it as it is, I made them or helped them understand the importance of excellence, right? So if I did nothing else in this life, there's 11 examples of people who went on to do great things and are doing great things right now.
Yeah. We do this thing called self-discovery journaling every day with our boys. We meet with them and we give them a question and we give them 10 minutes to write 5 sentences about the question to be able to cast a vision. So when I heard you say legacy, I have something I tell the boys all the time. I'm like, when I die, when I leave, I want to help so many people that they build a statue of me right here in Ocala, Florida.
There you go.
That's really my goal.
Yep.
When I think about legacy for you, I want you to tell. So what do you want your legacy to be when you leave out?
That I created 1,000 Black millionaires.
Wow.
That's my goal.
1,000.
1,000. Yeah. So $1 billion.
$1 billion.
Yes, sir.
Well, yeah, right now. You got some millionaires under your belt? Four? We got some work to do.
Got work. Well, what happens is I have to now that I've gotten it down to a system, I need to go me to we instead of person to person, right? Because that's how I've been doing it. But it's time to scale up.
Yeah.
And then that's how I'll get to the bigger numbers.
You got 5 right here.
Yeah, 6. So we sit and talk about legacy, and the is so crazy. Going back to the mentorship, we the podcast last week, it was mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
There was an incident yesterday, and I told Brother Rory it's gonna be a time for this, and I didn't think it was today, but it's today. And long story short, we're talking about the seeds that are planted.
Yes.
What is the legacy that I know Cut Different is gonna leave behind because of the work that we put in. But long story short, there was a gentleman that came to the fence as I was getting onto one of the boys, and I was only getting onto him because I see where he was going with the actions that he did. That took place earlier that day. His mom reached out to me and told me what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm correcting him. At that moment, as this guy's coming past, he said some choice words, basically criticizing what I was doing and how I was speaking to that young man. But like I told Rue, what he didn't know is before he got there, I was speaking to that young man, I guess the correct way or the way that he would want it to be. In the back and forth that he and I were having on that fence in front of the young man, he looked at me and he asked me, it's crazy. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. The thing that man asked me at the fence, he was like, you know the Rockers? You know Eddie Rocker? Again, we never had a conversation.
Oh, wow.
He said, do you know Eddie Rocker? I say, my name Eddie Rocker. Like, nah, Eddie Rocker. I said, Eddie Rocker is my dad. That's my biological dad. He said, wait, you Eddie Rocker Jr.? I said, yeah. That conversation totally changed. But the legacy that my Eddie Rocker has left is not a good legacy.
Sure. So
I'm in the sense of rebuilding the legacy or the name that the Rockers had. You know what I'm saying? So when I think about leaving a legacy, I think about me being out there pointing to that young man where he's going to be able to look back and say, Mr. Eddie Rocker, even though I was doing wrong, there's something that he implanted into me at a young age.
Sure.
So now he gave me something at a young age now that I can pour to somebody else. So not just leaving a legacy for my kids and for my family, being able to plant those seeds around Marion County, the kids that we reach, in order to get them to want to do the same thing, going forward. So sit and talk about legacy and being a mentor is, sometimes we get kicked back. People criticize the things that we do.
Well, but it's the only way generational change happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Martin Luther King didn't see a single thing that he advocated come to fruition, did he? So, but had he not been here, where would we be, right? Because he understood that his purpose was much larger than him. Right. So he put it out there, right? And so one thing that you'll get too is since I've mentored so many people over the years, I hear people say, man, I hear your voice in my head. I was getting ready to say so and something, and I heard you say, don't say that. Yeah. And that lets you know that you're doing, not so much that I have any mind control or anything like that, but I inspired them to pause and think about what they're going to say, what they're going to do, before it gets them into a jam, right? And I think that's part of the legacy that you lead. I mean, but like you said, my son was down here for a minute working for a buddy of mine, and he was in the mall, and another one of my friends walked by him and says, okay, well, one thing I know is you Elgin Carelock's son, but the question is, do you know that? Right? Because he looked just like him. But at the same time, people say that man, he's the best employee I ever had. I'm like, ooh, I can't get that boy to clean up his room. Right. But as they go out into the public, though, they represent what they grew up in.
Yeah. Right.
And see, and so you've already changed in that one gentleman's mind, like you said, when that conversation changed, because he maybe, if he knew the legacy that you spoke of earlier, he thought maybe I keep quiet because it may not go the way I want. Okay. Yeah. But I'm sure you changed all of that.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that's where I was getting back with you as well. The things that your upbringing, with seeing your grandparents, the way that they move, your granddad, both of them, being businessmen, you were exposed to a lot of things.
Oh, for sure.
We were exposed. I was exposed to not being able to be in the house with my biological dad. I was exposed to that.
Sure.
So this young man he is at home. That's a single parent household. I know what this young man is going through. Mm-hmm. So the exposure that I have, not even just from the lack of not having, the things that me and my brother, as we grew up, the things that my dad and my mom showed us, the things that the experiences that we had, these are things that I take to heart, or that, we learned or we got to experience. Mm-hmm. And we know exposure is going to lead the young men to lead to a higher height. Expansion. Their mind is going to be exposed to so many things that can help them go further in life. So to your point, the things that you were exposed to as a young man to the person that you are now, from helping you found a business out of it, right. But at the end of the day, that was still something that helped the older people. Sure. It still helped shape your future to where you are not only helping people, but still making money, being a strategist. So
Sure. And the one thing I'll add, and Jamie's heard me say this, so it's great to have the goal and the exposure, but for them to understand that it won't be easy to get it. You still have to go out and get it. But the other thing that I like so much about Cut Different is that you also are teaching them discipline. And that is going to be huge in their life, because it's so easy to go with the crowd. It's so easy to go with what's easy, right? You have a lot of intelligent people who never reach their fullest potential because they stop when it gets uphill, right? That's why the middle class is so big in our nation and the upper class is so small, because those are the ones who are willing to do the hard stuff.
And so to take it back, just a little bit of something that you said previously about, legacy and building up that legacy. And I'm glad that you referenced Dr. King as well, about how everything he did, he wasn't able to see.
Right.
We know the quote of saying that, he wants to live a prosperous life as well. He didn't want to be a martyr, but that was what was called for him to become ultimately.
Sure.
When we talk about legacy and legacy building, do you think sometimes people, they forget that it's a strong possibility that they won't actually see it come to fruition? Why sometimes, I'm just thinking about even in the community, sometimes when we're talking about community works and leaders and different things like that, why we haven't seen another Dr. King, just for example? Do you feel like sometimes we kind of get so fixated on legacy that we're trying to see it in our lifetime,
sure,
to where it actually dampens our moves that we're making?
For sure. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I was talking to a friend of mine in the FBI, and I asked him the same question. I said, is the reason another Dr. King hasn't emerged is because they know that they will certainly be killed? And he said, oh yeah, that's exactly why. They will certainly be killed. Okay. And so that's one inhibitor. But the other is, like you said, it's finding that level of selflessness, because the thing that can catch you so easily is hype, right? You get so famous that everything is yes. So it's easy to lead you down the road of doing things you shouldn't, right? Because everything that you ask for, they say yes. Mm-hmm. But the broader mind and the broader understanding of this is bigger than me is groomed. You have to make that effort. It doesn't, people say, oh, he's a natural born leader. True. But how far can he lead? Mm-hmm. Because if you aren't growing, then you're only going to go until you hit the top of what you know.
Right.
And then, so there should always be a move there. And so the legacy part exemplifies that I understand that all of the little shorties that you guys work with now may disperse out into the world, and you'll never know what happened. But 15 years from now, there could be a young man accepting his valedictorian award or his summa cum laude. He said, man, I want to give a shout out to Brother Miles, man. He was hard on me though, but I got to thank him. Yeah. That's what you're going after. When my wife's sister husband died unexpectedly about 20 years ago, he used to always come home from work, sit down, watch ESPN, then get up, go to bed, right? Because he worked late shift. So one morning she wakes up, he's not there. She goes down, he's sitting there in front of the TV. Well, he wasn't alive, right? Massive heart attack. When Brother Brown had his funeral, there must have been 400 people there We spent 2 hours of testimonies of the lives that he touched. And I bet you if you asked him that, he'd have no idea, right? Because that's just who he was. I mean, he was a season ticket holder for the Falcons. So, yeah, all of these people in their Falcons jerseys, you know, to talk about him and coaches and all this. I mean, just impact. That's legacy. That's legacy leadership.
Yeah, I like it. Even with the legacy, man, one thing that I think is going to be a part of your legacy is this acronym ENGAGE that you put together, man. I don't know who helped y'all you cook this up, but it's a beautiful thing. In your TED Talk. So if you guys that don't know, this man has a TED Talk. What's the title of Building Relationships?
The relationships we build.
The relationships we build. So you have to go watch that TED Talk. And I don't want to take away from your TED Talk, because I do want to draw people to it. But if we can kind of break down the ENGAGE in your short synopsis, however you can go, if you can go through the acronyms and the meaning of it and how this came about, can you go over that for us?
So a couple of years back, my wife and I made the decision that she was going to leave what she does full time and join the firm. Well, I'd had the company for 10 years and I was like, man, how do I quantify what I do? Like to share it with somebody else, because it's just me, right? I just do what I do. And I started writing different attributes of what we do. And that's how E.N.G.A.G.E.D was born, right? The E.N.G.A.G.E.D. And so it was, E was empathy, right? N is non-judgmental, and I can't remember the next G. I was thinking about that the other day.
Growing.
Yeah, growing, and then accountable, and then guiding, and then empowering and dedication, right? So those were the premise behind what it is we do, both as strategists, but leadership. Because our focus is always to get people to understand, as we started this conversation with, that the better the relationship, the better the scenario, the better the business, the better the life, the better your relationship in your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it all stems from those type things. And so by putting those together, I wanted to use it as a tool. So I've had several corporate speaking engagements where I would take ENGAGE and we would go in and I would talk to specifically managers and executive level to say to them, these are the things to get your people to do what it is you want, not threats. Do it or I'll fire you, right? If you can get them to understand that all of these things are important to you when it comes to them, you won't have to ask.
Yeah. Is this a naturally adaptive thing? So you think that anybody could take on this and engage and run with it? Because again, so when we think about, so one of and I'm gonna take a little thunder from your TED Talk.
Sure.
We're talking about guiding. And you gave the example of when you're in the shoe store.
Yeah.
And the lady came up to you and like there's just certain things that my mind, I don't go there.
Right.
If you come up to me and said, ma'am, I don't work here. Like I'm shutting that down right there. So for you to have the mind, I don't want to say, I was going to say, not a lot of people think like, well, I'm going to say that. Not a lot of people think like that. Not a lot of people are going to go out of their way to help someone, especially if they don't work in the store. So do you think naturally people can adapt this engage mentality? Would you call it a mentality?
Yes. Oh, for sure. For sure, it's a mindset.
Do you think this is a natural thing to adapt?
It can. It can. Because, again, if you accept the premise that this life isn't about you, right, then it's natural. I'll tell you another story. I was going to the Hobby Lobby right here, right? Full suit on. And it was an older lady standing by her car and it had a flat. And she was on the phone. So I'm looking over there and I said, okay, she's on the phone. Guess she called in AAA or whomever. So I go in Hobby Lobby, come back out. She's still standing there, flat's still there. And I said, ma'am, were you able to, I saw you on the phone. Did you call somebody? She says, well, they told me I don't have a rider in my insurance for them to come out and do it. And I can't get my son. I can't get him on the phone. I said, that's fine. I'll change the tire. She said, you have a suit on. I said, okay, but I'm not going to leave you stranded. It's like 95 degrees out here. Yeah. And so I changed the tire. Yeah. And she tried to pay me, which of course I didn't take.
Yeah.
But she was like, I just can't believe you did that. I mean, you got oil all over your suit. That's why they make dry cleaners, right? Yeah. Because the simple fact is, if you can help, you should. Yeah. It's just that simple. And so ENGAGE is just a reminder, right, that you always want to be in a position to help someone else, because that's really what this life's about. I mean, he works in the reverse. I mean, I used to have a Chevy Tahoe, and I was working out on a job site. It was like 4 a.m, and I was driving back home in Atlanta, and I caught a flat, and it was pouring rain. And so I'm jacking this big old Tahoe up and changing the tire, and APD rolls up beside me, rolls down the window. He says, "Got a flat, huh?" I said, "You notice." He says, "Good luck with that." I mean, he could have jumped out and given brother a hand, right? But no, he's just probably just making sure I wasn't stealing that truck.
Man, that's funny. So I think everything. Oh, go ahead.
Nah, I was just about to, and today I wasn't aware of the podcast. I mean the TED Talk till today, and when I heard it, I called Roy and I said, "Bro, what?" Like, never. But even after hearing it, thinking about what we do, with the boys, but also just for people in today's life, if they take the acronym ENGAGE or the word, the acronym, and actually apply that to their life, our community would be so much better.
So different. So different.
That guy on the outside of the fence, and I go back to that because that's just had to be one of the craziest things. Apparently, you're not engaged in your community to know what's going on.
Sure.
Because at that same point in time, there was a kid that walked past the gate, and I told her, so the gentleman and I were going back and forth, but it was a young man walking past. He stopped me. He was like, "Hey, you work with Cut Different?" So apparently, it was a logo. I was like, yeah, he came to the fence. And at the same time, I was talking about what the man thought was going wrong with me and that young man.
Yes.
The kid dapped me up and said, "Man, y'all keep doing what y'all doing." So apparently that young man is engaged with what we got going on.
Yep.
And if we continue to do the work that we're doing, then it'll reach further, within the community outside of Ocala. And that's what we say. We want to take what we do here at Cut Different, and we want to make this a worldwide thing.
Yeah.
And I think, again, just with that alone, if other people will adapt that, go check out his podcast, the TED Talk. I guarantee it'll change the mindset for sure.
Well, and so let's use that exact same example, right? If you were to say to him, yeah, hey, I appreciate your point of view. So tell me, what would it have changed if I did it your way? Right? So, because you now you put it back to him, because it's easy to throw rocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Easy to throw rocks. Well, no, well, I'm just saying though. Right?
Yeah.
And then you just give it back to him, let him off the hook, and just go. But that's the idea is really being mindful. Allows you to do what I used to teach my kids, a 7-second delay. Hear it and then say it. Don't just say it. Because once it's out there, you can't pull it back. And so you have some scenarios that you can diffuse by simply turning it back to them and letting them hear what they say. Guess that don't make sense, huh? No, it doesn't. But I don't have to get into a shout match. I'm saying, so now all of y'all are working with Jamie, and one of the things I really admire about you is clarification. He say, so what I'm hearing is right? So he wants to make sure. Do that same thing in just about every scenario. So somebody saying, you say, "Sir, hey, I got you. So are you saying?" And they'd be like, "Well, no." So it could just be that he wasn't communicating, right?
Yeah.
And so that's it. Engaged is about, it's really about listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go one step further. It's not just listening, it's hearing. Because you can listen to what somebody says and not hear it. And here, let me give you an example. You say something to a young man and it doesn't get the reaction. Miles come in a few minutes later, say the exact same thing. And he goes, "Oh, okay." And you're like, "Didn't I just say that?" But he didn't hear you.
Yeah.
Right? He was listening to the words hitting his face, but he didn't hear you. Right? And so that's the idea. So being engaged is actually just being in the now. I'm right here. You do it, all of you do it with the women in your life. There's far more that she doesn't say that you heard than what she did say and you listened.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, another thing too is just spotting out the I guess silver lining of that situation. So with the man coming to the fence trying to check you, Yeah, I can see from your point of view how you do this all the time. You're sitting here trying to pour wisdom to this young man. For whatever reason, you have to take a certain tone with him. But from the other spot too, it's like, well, at least another man in the community is coming to check
Sure.
on seeing a man get at a young man. You see what I'm saying? Like, because sometimes we get upset that our community don't participate or get involved. But now you see a man across the street, he's sitting there minding his business. Now he see a man get onto a young man, and he's like, okay, I'm not really vibing on that, so let me go over and see what's going on. So to your point that type of things out. Say, hey, I appreciate you coming over and making sure everything's good.
Yeah.
However, this is just what's going on right now.
Or look, it go on further. We always looking for volunteers and mentors. If you feel so moved,
come in.
You have to come out. Come see us.
I understand that part, but you can't make me understand that part. Because I'm with my son, and I'm chastising my son, and the man walking past, and he's trying to correct me on how I'm chastising my son. I say, hey, sir, go find your own son. Because what how Brother Roy and I was talking about it was, if I'm walking past the fence at the same time, if I was the one walking past the fence and I seen the gentleman yelling at a kid, I'm gonna say from my perspective, like, hey, whatever that little man did, he probably needed that as a respect, because we don't see that in our community. There's a lack of. So if you see a man getting on somebody, then I feel like that's where, but that's how I'm saying. And then again, if he was engaged, because within that community where we from, for him to be able to call out the people that have not done good things, you should be able to call out the people that are doing good things at the same time, to realize, okay, well, you may not know me, but you know the brand. Then you're not, that's why I feel like, okay, you're not engaged in the community. You're just somebody passing by throwing stones from outside that fence. You know what I'm saying? So that's just how
it's a twofold thing. I see what both y'all are saying when it comes to that, because it do go back to even when we think about youth league, and you see some of the coaches. We've been a part of things where you see some of the coaches just take it too far.
Sure.
And they going wild. And you like, come on, bro, it ain't take all that. So it could have been one of them situations. So both of them are right, but in the situation, obviously, we know who we are. So you don't think anybody should come against that. So I guess you could see it both sides. But I do want to get it back to Ms. Carelock. So with the E.N.G.A.G.E.D deal, so you got engaged. So I think this is something that should be worldwide. We got review business strategy, and then you got go CDC.
Yes.
So all around the spectrum, you're helping people all the time. I kind of want to go more so in the go CDC right now. You are build a better business.
Yes.
That's something you got. So that you came up with that, correct? So
Yeah, I wrote the curriculum.
So why did you come with that? What was the spark to say we need this in our community?
So when I was studying for my PhD, the dissertation, the argument was small businesses fail because they don't understand the critical factors of success, right? And I mean, I got all the way up to just about to defend my dissertation to finish my PhD when they told me that the whole purpose wasn't to answer the question. The whole purpose was to prove if the question was valid. And I was like, what? And I stopped right there, right? But I didn't want 3 years of research to go by the wayside. So I said, all right, I'll make this into a curriculum. And so we started, when I first got here back in 2009, me and Mike Chung from the Small Business Development Council would go to the Shores and Marion Oaks, and we would do entrepreneur workshops. So we'd usually have 15 to 20 people. And they started saying, well, this isn't long enough. Can you come back? So it started went from once a month to once a week. And they kept saying, this isn't long enough. So it went to 2 weeks, and now it's up to 9 weeks. And they still say it's not enough. But it was so that we can take, it's called a nascent entrepreneur, someone who has an idea but hasn't moved on it. That person, and then the person who started but hasn't gotten it to the first stage. And the first stage is your ability to pay yourself. Okay, there's plenty of people, right? So I wanted to make sure that they had a pathway that they could see, all right? And so we offered the class through the Go CDC, free of charge, right? And then after the 9 weeks, if you made all 9 classes, you get to do a Shark Tank style pitch in front of judges. And the judges that I get has been everybody from the city manager on down, multimillionaires. And they ask them really hard questions because for them to understand this is what it takes to go out there. And I've always just wanted to save them the trouble that I had, right? I mean, most of the things that I know came from trial and error. So in my adult life, I've probably lost 400,000 because I just didn't know. And so now it's probably part of my eagerness to help people is just to keep them from making mistakes that we can foresee, right? There's always going to be things we don't see. I mean, that's never going to stop. But you know, business is like skating on Swiss cheese. It's not a question of if you'll fall in the hole, just when. So if I start to show you, you know, the ones that we can plug up, right? You still look at some ones that you ain't see. But if we can plug those up, then your opportunity to sustain is greatly increased.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see with amateur entrepreneurs? So the people that are coming through Go CDC, I mean, through Build a Better Business, what are some of the biggest things that you see, you know, throughout most of the people that come through?
Number one, not knowing the difference between a business and a hobby, right? There's things you do because you love to do, but they don't make money. That's a hobby. But there are people who will go sign a lease, get signs built, spend all this money, and it fell, right? Because it wasn't a business. It was a hobby, right? And then secondly, the importance of marketing. 90% of the reason why businesses fail is poor marketing. They can say, oh, I didn't have enough customers. That's a symptom of poor marketing, right? And marketing is simply awareness. I know you're there. You can have a way to turn, you know, poop to gold, but if no one knew, right? That's the most. And because they get friends and family to tell them how good things are. Girl, you make the best pound cake I ever had. Man, if you put this out there, you'll be a millionaire in a year, right? But who said to her inventory? Who said to her, how do you get everybody out there to try your pound cake? And how are you delivering your pound cake? Where are you storing it? So I try to get them to think on a level from concept to delivery. And so I'll give you an example. I had a young lady who wanted to open a restaurant. And so she rented some space in a store to put her stuff in there until she could buy her own. And the owner would let her use it to turn her product out. And I said to her, how big is it? And she told me the size. And I was like, okay, your product is a combination of things, right? And she said, yeah, but it's delivered to you independently and you mix them. She said, right? So if you were doing $5,000 a month, that means there'd be 35 pounds of this ingredient. Is it bigger than that? And she's like, oh. I said, and then when you finish, it has to be refrigerated, right? And she said, yeah. Is it big enough to hold 5,000 worth? No.
Yeah.
Get out of that lease. Right. Okay. You see, who tells them that? Yeah. So that's what we try to do with the Build a Better Business, is really just make you aware of all of the facets of what makes something successful.
Yeah, everybody's mind don't work like that, man. You got a special mind. But I want to know, so speaking to Build a Better Business, do you have like a number one success story? Is there one success story that you had that sticks out more than the other when it comes to the program, or somebody that's been through the program?
Sure. A young lady, and she was, believe it or not, this program is supposed to be for Ocala, Marion County, right? And she lived in Winter Haven. But she drove up here to take the class, and I was not going to turn her away, okay? And so she was a young lady who is a clear example of life be lifing, right? Husband tried to kill her, stabbed her 16 times. She survived. Lived in the car, sold drugs, went to jail, grill, tattoos, I mean, the whole thing. And over our association together, you know, we helped redesign the packaging. She already had a stellar product, and now she sells it in Walmart.
Yeah, no, that's dope. So from the kid from Washington, D.C., the kid that went to the heights, 7 Hills, to the man that's sitting here right here on stage right now. If you had to give somebody 3 three things that they need to focus on. The young man that's sitting there, the young person that's watching this, he said the three things, success, or just points that you would give advice on, you know, if you were going, I guess the question is how people will usually ask it, if you can go back and tell your teenage self something, what would you tell it? If you could pick 3 points that you'll hit on and tell this teenage person as you look him in the eye, for the 3 keys to success from Mr. Elgin Carelock, what would they be?
Wow. I would say number 1 would be focus. Learn how to focus, right? For me, even to this very day, you know, I know a great deal about a lot of things. I'll never be an expert in anything because I'm such that I'm very curious. So if I want to know how that camera works, I'll spend the next 6 months and I'll know everything about how that camera works. If I'd have spent a year, I could have been an expert. But once I satisfy my curiosity, I move on, right? So that's how people always say, man, you know so much. I'm just a curious person.
Yeah.
But how simple, how much better would my life be if I had a singular focus?
Mm-hmm.
And so for the last 20-odd years, it was working in that track. Second would be discipline. And focus helps discipline because if you know what it is you're trying to accomplish, then you know all of the things that won't help that. And so that helps you be disciplined. If I want to have 12% body fat, eating chocolate ice cream at 10 o'clock at night and after my 5 Guys and fries ain't helping so much, right? So discipline. And then the last thing is service, right? So another reason why small businesses fail is that they forget that you are not the customer. So even though you're trying to raise enough money to make your rent, the idea is then I need to add enough value that someone will pay me and then I get it. Instead of going out and trying to hustle people to get the money, right? So if you took a service point of view, whether it's using Engaged or in business, then you'll find that the success that you have, if I might, I'll use Rondo Fernandez, right? When I got here in town, he had just opened Mojo Grill in that little spot on the corner where the Hammock Bar and Grill is now, right? Next to the ice cream place. And he was in there every day cooking, every day. And that place sat like 25 people. But what did Rondo and his wife do? Man, they fed everybody. Whether you had money or you didn't. And so we were in B&I together, and I asked him one time, you making any money? He's like, no. And I said, but keep doing what you're doing. People do not forget. And now look. You see what I mean? Because that was who they were. And they understood the servant's mentality. And then the money would come as a result of that. And the community rallies, right? And I say, you know, you guys are experiencing some of the things, the same things now, because the parents, when we have the summer assemblage and the parents are coming up talking about the difference you guys make in their lives, it's only because you have a servant's heart. And the kids recognize that because they recognize when you fake too. They recognize you doing this to get a paycheck. They know that, right? So why do they listen to you and not their teacher? The teacher is there to help, right? Because they can feel whether it's genuine or not.
Yeah, I like it. So focus, discipline, and service. Yeah, all right. So, man, we plethora of information that we just gave on this podcast today. So before we go anywhere, I need you to do this. I need you to stop what you're doing and smash that subscribe button, all right? Like, subscribe, and comment, all right? Mr. Elgin Carelock has gave a plethora of information since we've been sitting here, man. We appreciate you for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Carelock. So you guys got to go watch his TED Talk. I say this right now. Please put Elgin Carelock TED Talk, and it'll come up, and you definitely won't be regret it. You won't regret it is what I'm gonna say. All right, fellas, y'all got anything, Ms. Carelock, before we turn around?
Nah, good scene.
As always.
How about you, brother Bob?
Good stuff.
For sure. So as we go off, we always have this. I'm gonna have you. You know, you're gonna have to close it out. You can tell people where to find you at if they want to be a part of Go to CDC to build a better business, review business strategies. You can give them information where they can find you. But I want to know this, and now I've asked you this before, but I just want everybody else to hear. When it comes to end goal, what's your end goal? Like, and again, I know you just said help the millionaire thing. I don't know if that's your concrete end goal, if you had anything else you want to add to that. But I just like for people to hear, people like yourself that may get things done and make things happen. I like to put people in the mindset of what you think. So when you're thinking about an end goal, so what is your end goal when you hear?
To make people really understand that they can, right? I mean, whatever it is, you absolutely can. But you have to be willing to build a plan for it and then do everything that it takes to get there, right? We all say, I want to be a multi-millionaire. I've had the pleasure of working and knowing a lot, and I can tell you most will not do what they do. In bed by 8:30, up at 4. The discipline, reading 2 books every month. They're always growing. And the money just is a byproduct. I mean, they don't think about it at all. The ones that I see that have attained wealth, there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. The wealthy ones don't think about money at all. It just comes because as they're increasing who they are, then other opportunities present themselves that they can take advantage of, and it just keeps moving. People say the rich keep getting richer. Well, because they keep doing the things that make them rich.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. I like it. All right. So now we do this. Tell them where they can find you. Where can anybody, if they want to get the sauce, get the juice from Mr. Elgin Carelock, where can they find you?
So the nonprofit is the Greater Ocala Community Development Corporation, or Go CDC for short. You can go to our website, which is gocdc.org, to find information about the Build a Better Business series. And also, if you're kicking around an idea for a business, you can come and do a consultation for free. It won't cost you anything. And we'll sit down and work through what it is you're trying to do and what strategies are be consistent with it being successful. For the coaching and business on a higher level, as Jamie said, our company is Review Business Strategies. And you can find us just under that name. Our URL is way too long, so I can try to spell it. But you can find it, it's Re-View. And that's how it'll come up fast if you do it that way. And otherwise, I mean, I am on Instagram. LinkedIn is where I am most, because my business is business to business. So you can find me on LinkedIn as well. And always happy to help and always happy to talk to somebody who's looking for inspiration to move to the next level.
Love it, man. I love it. So definitely follow up on that, man. I know we got a lot of people that's watched this podcast that want better. Entrepreneurship is a big word in these days. Everybody want to be their own boss and be an entrepreneur. If you're serious about it, you're sitting here right now, just got information from the man that can really make your dreams come true, or help you plan your dreams and help them come true, because you're going to be the one that got to make them come true at the end of the day. All right. So, man, like we always say, make sure you like and subscribing and commenting, Mr. Carelock. We appreciate you for being here, man. We tied in forever, so you can't get rid of me. So I appreciate you, man, for everything.
Hey, thank you, gentlemen.
So, family, we'll see y'all next time.